Welcome back, focused learners, to another edition of our Explainer. Today, we're diving straight into a pretty high-stakes reality that every business leader, especially those of you running SMEs, really needs to confront. And that reality is this. Every single business model has a shelf life. We're going to be digging into Dr. Mike Teng's playbook, Business Model Innovation for the AI Era, and we'll look at exactly why relying on yesterday's winning formula is pretty much a surefire way to be left behind tomorrow. Let's get into it.
So think about it for a second. Have you noticed your margins kind of quietly shrinking over the last few years? You really have to ask yourself, does your business model actually have an expiration date? Take Singapore's history as a perfect example here. For decades, right, Singapore built this massive prosperity on a huge network of middlemen. Traders, agents, distributors, the whole shebang. But then the internet arrived, and suddenly it made it totally effortless for buyers and sellers to just find each other directly. Now, those middleman companies didn't suddenly become bad at what they did. What they did just simply stopped being worth paying for. That right there is the classic middleman squeeze.
And that squeeze brilliantly illustrates our core thesis for today, which is captured perfectly in this quote by Dr. Mike Teng. He says, companies that fail to refresh their business models are not beaten by better products. They are beaten by better ways of doing business. It's absolutely crucial to understand this. Your deepest competitive advantage isn't just the product you're selling. It's the entire system of how you create, deliver, and capture value.
So here's our treatment plan for today's explainer. 1. Your model shelf life. 2. Anatomy of a business. 3. 3 tactics for success. 4. AI, a business model event. 5. 7 AI era patterns. And finally, 6. Your 90-day roadmap. We've got a really clear, structured path here, from diagnosing the problem to actually implementing the prescription.
All right, section 1. Your model's shelf life. Let's look at why the clock runs so much faster now. Just look at the sheer acceleration of disruption on this timeline. The forces of disintermediation and globalization, well, they really started compressing business lifespans back in the 1990s with the internet. Then boom, came mobile in the 2000s, the cloud in the 2010s, and now here we are in the 2020s with AI. Every single tech cycle resets customer expectations in just a matter of a few years. And AI? Well, AI is literally the ultimate accelerant. That means a business model tuned to the last wave is quietly leaking relevance right now, even if your revenues still look perfectly healthy today.
Moving on to Section 2, Anatomy of a Business. It's time to diagnose your current state.
Okay, so what you're looking at here is the business model canvas, originally proposed by Osterwalder and Pignor. Think of this as a one-page X-ray of your entire business. It maps out 9 interlocking blocks, covering everything from your key partners and activities all the way to customer segments and revenue streams. Now, interestingly enough, when most SME owners actually sit down to fill this out, they discover some pretty uncomfortable blank spots, mostly because nobody actually made deliberate decisions about those specific areas. You really need to map out your current model right here on this canvas, warts and all, because, well, you simply cannot redesign a system that you haven't drawn out first.
Which brings us to Section 3, 3 tactics for success. This is the foundational cure, because before we even think about administering any AI treatments, your business actually needs a solid, healthy foundation.
Dr. Teng outlines a really clear, sequential progression to get healthy. Step 1 is to find your niche. You need a highly specific market position where you can actually win, especially against the giant corporations. Because remember, SMEs thrive on personalization and tight relationships. Step 2 is transforming the organization so it can actually accept this new model. And then Step 3 is implementing innovatively and productively. You really have to balance both of those, because honestly, just optimizing an obsolete business model, that just makes you fail more efficiently.
Try thinking of organizational transformation, kind of like a medical treatment plan. A sick company first needs surgery just to survive, meaning restructuring, cutting costs, focusing purely on cash flow. Once the bleeding finally stops, then you move to resuscitation. That's rebuilding sales and winning back customers to regain true profitability. And finally, you enter the nursing phase, where you rehabilitate the culture and innovate the business model to sustain long-term health. Because a brilliant new business model grafted onto a sick organization, it's simply going to die of rejection.
All right, Section 4, AI, a business model event. Let's talk about the performance-enhancing treatment.
I really want to draw a sharp distinction for you here. It's super tempting to view AI merely as a productivity tool, just a faster way to write emails or handle support tickets. But doing that completely misses the big picture. AI is actually a business model event. It doesn't just change what work costs, it systematically alters what customers will actually pay for. It totally collapses the cost of customization, It expands your feasible customer segments, and it unlocks entirely new revenue streams. It's a real game changer.
And hey, if you think this is all purely theoretical, let me hit you with some hard facts. 3.2x. That right there is the median return on investment after just 12 months for SME AI projects under 100,000 euros. No way around it, that is a massive return.
Let's break down this survey data just a little bit further to put things into perspective. 58% of small businesses are already using at least one AI tool. Of those, a staggering 91% report a revenue boost, and 86% report improved profit margins. The ultimate takeaway from all this data? Pure reassurance. The playing field has officially leveled. As an SME, you can adopt AI capabilities right now that Fortune 500 companies literally couldn't even buy a decade ago. And you can deploy them way faster than those slow corporate giants.
Moving into Section 5, 7 AI era patterns. It's time to start redrawing the blueprint.
There's basically a whole new shelf in the business model library now. So here's a rapid-fire look at 7 AI-era patterns where AI acts as the delivery engine rather than the product itself. We've got outcome-based pricing, service as software, hybrid revenue models, AI-enhanced subscriptions, data monetization, agentic delivery where the AI literally executes whole units of work, and finally, the AI-powered niche, which suddenly makes these tiny hyper-niches actually profitable to serve.
Let's just highlight one of these really quickly. Arguably the most disruptive pattern for service-based SMEs, service as software. Now, what this means is packaging up what used to be billable human hours, think things like bookkeeping, writing first draft contracts, or doing market research, and selling it as an AI-delivered product with a fixed price tag and a guaranteed turnaround time. By automating all that routine stuff, human workers are freed up to focus entirely on high-value judgment, accountability, and real customer relationships. It's just an incredible shift in your value proposition.
And finally, Section 6, your 90-day roadmap. Here is the prescription. My best advice here, start with a quick win, not some crazy moonshot. Document and email automation sits right at the very top of the quick wins list. It boasts an 89% success rate, and it practically pays for itself in just a matter of weeks. It really is the most natural first move for almost any business looking to stop that constant leakage of skilled human hours into boring, routine tasks.
So here is exactly how you chart out your 3-month roadmap. Days 1 to 30, diagnose and learn. You're going to map out your canvas, audit where your hours are leaking, and just pick one solid quick win use case. Then, days 31 to 60, pilot and measure. Run that pilot on real work with real customers. Make sure to keep a human in the loop to prevent any weird AI hallucinations and really test out your pricing. Finally, days 61 to 90, decide and scale. Review the hard numbers, scale up whatever worked, set your KPIs, and then immediately start planning your next 90-day cycle. It's all about small, measured, reversible steps.
Which brings us to our final thought for this explainer. You know, the great steel mills and those massive legacy phone giants failed because they took business models that once perfectly fit their era, and they simply tried to optimize them harder as the world changed around them. They quite literally optimized themselves into irrelevance. But as an SME, you have the agility to avoid that fate. You have the tools, the roadmap, and this massive AI accelerant right at your fingertips. So the question is, are you going to keep optimizing yesterday's model, or will you continuously treat your business, reinvent your niche, and transform to perform? Thanks so much for joining me today, and I'll catch you on the next one.